My name is Rachel Voss, and the day I found out what my business partner had done, I was sitting across from an auditor named Carl, who had a plain brown folder on the desk between us and the most neutral expression I had ever seen on a human face. He opened the folder, he turned it around so I could read it. The first page had one number at the top, $240,000. Ms. Voss, Carl said, we've been watching this account for 6 months. I looked at the number. I looked at the name next to it. The account belonged to Diane Purcell. Diane was my business partner's wife. I took a slow breath. Show me everything, I said. I'm Rachel. I'm 39 years old. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I co-owned a mid-size event staffing company called Voss Purcell Group. We place temporary staff for corporate events, conferences, trade shows. At our peak, we had 43 regular clients and a roster of over 200 contractors. I built that company from a folding table in my spare bedroom. I mean that literally. 8 years ago, I had a laptop, a phone, a list of contacts, and an idea. I worked 16-hour days for the first 2 years. I ate bad takeout and answered emails at midnight and drove to venues myself when a placement fell through at the last minute. By year 3, I needed help. That's when I brought in Derek Purcell. Derek and I had known each other for years. He was charming, connected, good with clients. He had the kind of handshake and eye contact that made people feel immediately comfortable. I was good at systems and operations. He was good at rooms full of people. We made sense on paper. We drew up a partnership agreement, 50-50, equal say, equal share. I should have read that agreement more carefully. Not the terms, the person. Before I keep going, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe. New story every single week. You won't regret it. The first 4 years were good. The company grew steadily. We landed 3 anchor clients in year 2 that accounted for 40% of our revenue. We hired a small office team. We moved out of my spare bedroom and into a real space on Meridian Street with actual desks and a coffee machine that worked most of the time. Derek handled client relationships and sales. I handled operations, contracts, payroll, and the books. I always handled the books. In year 5, something shifted. I couldn't name it exactly at first. Derek started coming in later, started taking more calls outside the office, started pushing back on things he'd never pushed back on before. Vendor contracts, staffing ratios, expense approvals. He started submitting expenses I didn't recognize. Small ones at first. A client dinner I hadn't been invited to, a hotel stay for a conference I didn't know we were attending, a rental car for a trip with no corresponding event in our calendar. I flagged them. He had an explanation for each one, always reasonable, always just plausible enough. I wrote them down anyway. I have a notebook. I've had one since I started the company. Every meeting, every decision, every number. Old habit from the folding table days. By the end of year 5, I had 4 pages of flagged expenses, total just under $18,000. I didn't confront Derek. Not yet. I wanted to understand the full shape of it before I moved. I called an accountant named Miriam Tate. She'd done work for a friend of mine who ran a small restaurant group. My friend said she was thorough, discreet, and completely without sentiment when it came to numbers. I needed all 3. I gave Miriam full access to our company financials going back 3 years. I told her what I was looking for. I told her to take her time and be careful. She came back to me in 3 weeks. What she found was not $18,000. It was a pattern. Derek had set up a secondary vendor account 18 months earlier, a company called DPG Consulting. DPG stood for Derek Purcell Group. The invoices came in monthly, always under $10,000, the threshold that triggers automatic internal review. Always described vaguely: event coordination support, strategic planning services, administrative consulting. Miriam traced every payment. Every single one had been transferred from DPG Consulting into a personal account, Diane Purcell's personal account. Over 18 months, $240,000. I sat at my kitchen table after Miriam called me, and I just looked at the wall for a long time. 8 years. I had given 8 years to that company. I had missed weekends and holidays and my cousin's wedding and 2 funerals because I was working. I had built something real from nothing. And Derek had been quietly hollowing it out for a year and a half. What they didn't know was Miriam was not the only person paying attention. I had filed a routine external audit request 8 months earlier. Standard practice, something I did every 2 years to keep our books clean for insurance and bonding purposes. The auditing firm had assigned a man named Carl Briggs. Carl was the kind of auditor who noticed things other people's eyes slid past. He had flagged DPG Consulting in his first month. He hadn't said anything to me yet because he was still building the full picture. He needed to follow protocol. He needed to be certain. By the time I walked into his office that Tuesday morning, Carl had been watching Derek's paper trail for 6 months. He had everything.
Wire transfers, timestamps, the shell company registration documents for DPG Consulting filed under Derek's home address. Bank records showing the money moving from our company account to DPG to Diane's personal account in 3 predictable steps every single month. He had the pattern so clearly documented it looked like a diagram. I looked at all of it spread across that plain brown folder. "What are my options?" I said. Carl folded his hands. "Ms. Voss," he said, "you have very good options." I called an attorney that afternoon. Her name was Sandra Okafor. She specialized in business litigation and had a reputation for being methodical and completely unsentimental. I brought her Miriam's report and Carl's audit findings. She reviewed everything over 2 days. Then she filed a civil fraud complaint against Derek Purcell and a fraudulent transfer claim against Diane Purcell personally because the money had moved into her account, which made her a named party regardless of what she claimed to know. Sandra also filed for an emergency injunction to freeze the business accounts and prevent any further transfers while the case was active. The injunction was granted in 48 hours. Derek found out when he tried to process payroll and his access was suspended. He called me 4 times that afternoon. I let every call go to voicemail. The 5th time he called, I picked up. "Rachel." His voice was careful, like he was deciding how to play it. "Derek," I said, "this is a misunderstanding. DPG was a legitimate consulting arrangement. I should have disclosed it more formally, but the work was real." "Carl has 6 months of wire transfers," I said. "Miriam has 18 months of invoices. Sandra has the shell company registration with your home address on it." Silence. "We can talk about this," he said. "We can work something out between us. We don't need lawyers." "We needed lawyers 18 months ago," I said, "before you moved $240,000 into your wife's account." He didn't say anything. "I'll see you in court, Derek," I said. I hung up. The case settled 8 months later. Derek's attorney made the first move towards settlement at month 4. By then, the forensic accounting had turned up an additional $31,000 in expenses that hadn't been in Miriam's initial report. The total was closer to $271,000. The settlement required full repayment over 24 months. Derek's share of the partnership was dissolved, bought out at a reduced valuation that reflected the damage done. Diane's account was subject to a civil recovery order for the transferred funds. Derek also signed a non-disclosure agreement, Sandra's idea. She said it protected me from him telling his version of events to our shared clients. I didn't argue. The day the settlement was signed, I drove back to the office on Meridian Street. I sat at my desk. The coffee machine was making its usual sound in the corner. I opened my notebook to a fresh page. I wrote the date at the top. Then I wrote, Day 1. The company is still running. I renamed it. It's just Voss Group now. Cleaner, more accurate, more mine. I brought in a new operations director named Tasha, who asks better questions than Derek ever did, and never once made me feel like I had to explain myself in my own building. We're smaller than we were at peak, but the books are clean,
Every vendor is verified. Every expense has a name and a reason and a receipt. I still have the notebook. I'm on my fourth one now. Some people learn to trust less after something like this. I understand that impulse, but I don't think that's the right lesson. The right lesson is stay close to your numbers. Know your own business better than anyone else in the room. And when something doesn't add up, write it down. The truth is always in the details. Derek just forgot that I was the one who taught myself to read them. If you've ever built something from nothing and had someone treat it like it was theirs to take, I want you to know something. The work you put in leaves a record. The details you paid attention to matter. The notebook you kept when nobody told you to keep one, that's what saves you. Stay careful. Stay consistent. Stay close to what you built. Drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you would have done. I read every single one. Hit that like button. Help this story reach someone who needs to hear it today. If this story hit close to home, you are not alone. Stories like this one exist because people like you keep watching and sharing. Subscribe. New story every week. And I'll see you in the next one.